for the most part, you need an elite quarterback to make a Super Bowl run, and that's exactly what Joe Burrow is. He made it last year. 2 game-winning drives, 90-plus passer rating. That's what Lamar has failed to do in his career just yet. And the Bengals beat the Falcons 35-17. They're 4-3, tied for first place in the AFC North. Joe Burrow, 481 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. I mean, just looking at these stats. 450-plus passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 80% completion percentage, and a rushing touchdown in the same game. Joe Burrow is the only quarterback to do it. He is the first quarterback in NFL history with multiple 500 yards and 4 touchdown games. He has 12-plus passing touchdowns of 50-plus yards since 2021. No other player has over 7 in that time span, and there are only 5 players in NFL history with 13-plus passing touchdowns and with 50-plus yards before turning 26. Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Mahomes, Namath, Joe Burrow, all Hall of Famers. All Hall of Famers.
I'm actually surprised on that list.
Me too.
Now, Joe Burrow, week 1, it's funny because we came on this show after week 1. 4 interceptions, he had a bad performance, although, he was kind of hurt. He had surgery on his appendix. He came in, didn't have much of an offseason training program. And you're like, oh, see, I told you there was a fluke. Joe Burrow kind of, since then, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's in the MVP conversation. He's the top 3 quarterback. If Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes weren't so goddamn great, there's an argument for Joe Burrow being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, at least at the top of the list. The Bengals are finding their stride. It's as simple as that. And I understand that last week you continue to pick the Ravens to win the NFC North because you believe the AFC North because you believe in Lamar Jackson. But the truth about it is, anybody not picking the Bengals to win this division is a fool. And it's not just because Joe Burrow is a superior quarterback. It's because the Bengals have a superior team. This is not only one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL, but this defense is the 8th ranked defense in the NFL, and they have not allowed a touchdown in the second half of the season, in the second half of any game this season.
Crazy.
Yet. They're on a bye week soon after the Browns and Panthers game. Trey Hendrickson, DJ Reader, Logan Wilson all get healthy. Their schedule is fairly easy, and I think they have a chance to be 6-3 at the bye week, evaluate some things, and then move forward. The Achilles heel right now is that the running game still isn't going. And I think it's a couple things. One, the offensive line just isn't that good. It really is not. They made these big splash raging moves, but Lyle Collins has been a huge disappointment to this point.
For sure.
And Joe Mixon, he also just he doesn't have the same burst. By every single advanced metric, rushing metric, EPA, all this stuff, Joe Mixon is at the bottom of a lot of lists, and that's been the complete opposite of what he was last season. And that's why they've kind of been using Pirine more. But the Bengals, although that's an issue, as long as the passing game is going, and I think Hayden Hurst also brings a better dimension to this offense than C.J. Uzomah did last year, this team can make it back to the Super Bowl. Like, they can. They're that good. There's a brand new fantasy app. It's called Boom Fantasy. You got over-unders, player props. You got matchups. This player versus that player. That's personally my favorite and long shots. You can win 40 times your money. And if I'm not mistaken, Joel, NBA is coming soon.
Yes, sir. NBA will be in the app in the next 10 days or so. Wow. I believe opening night is October 19th, so we'll have stuff up a few days beforehand. That's going to be fun because we have it every night. You don't have to wait till Monday, Thursday.
Did you get your code? For the league pass?
I did get my code for the league pass.
I got my code too.
Yep, that's amazing.
That's from 2K, right?
Yes.
That's tough.
Amazing.
That's fire.
So if you guys haven't already, download the Boom Fantasy app right now. Link is in our description or in the caption wherever you're watching.
About the Bengals, Joel said a lot of things that are 100% spot on, and I mentioned it earlier. It would not shock me if the Bengals were to go back to the Super Bowl. Their defense is better. Their offense is still prolific. And Joe Mixon is good enough to be that running back in that situation that he can thrive. Because when you have Joe Burrow, who's one of the elite passers in the NFL, you have one of the elite wide receiver groups in the NFL, you can get the job done. Jamar Chase is a top 5 receiver regardless of how slow he started. He is an explosive guy, still one of the best high-point catchers in the game. You have T. Higgins, who you cannot leave on an island. It's quite that simple. T. Higgins, who's also might be, we were having this conversation, a fringe top 10 wide receiver, and I think that he's just outside the top 10, but he is that good and has that much potential to definitely enter that conversation. And again, it all starts with Joe Burrow and how excellent he's been. He had 4 picks in the first week. He only has 1 since then. He's number 2 in yards. I believe right now he's number 3 in touchdowns, and that's with Josh Allen also being on bye, how great Josh Allen has been. But to continue to talk about Burrow, he's been excellent. I understand where you're coming from with them winning the division. It's a big wait and see. The Ravens are still playing decent football. They've trailed for minutes and are somehow have a 4-3 record as well as the Bengals. But this team is definitely one that can mess around and go to the Super Bowl again and potentially win the whole thing. The defense is playing great. Is that still a thing that they haven't let a second half score happen?
Yeah, they haven't.
That's been absolutely amazing. All levels of football, the Bengals just have to be one of those teams that you got to be on the lookout for.
The only question I have with the Bengals is Zach Taylor. That's really the only person, and he had a great game.
And
really, the offensive line is still questionable for sure. They made a bunch of additions. It just hasn't really clicked. Although I think this past game against Atlanta was probably their best game of the season.
Yeah, it was.
And especially with offensive line having 5 guys, you have to play as a unit. So it's very hard to week 1 when you have all these new starters come in right away and just beat an elite offensive line, right? It might take half the season for them to really find their stride. And if they find that stride in the back half, this team becomes very dangerous. I mean, this offense, what can you say about it? You have the best wide receiver duo, if not 1, 2 with Miami. You have a defense that's playing really well. Zach Taylor just has those moments at time, right? Like against Baltimore where we question, is he really going to be the head coach for this team long term? They got to a Super Bowl last year. You can't discredit that. Regardless of what I say about the opponents they face, there's only 2 teams that make it every year that go to the Super Bowl. Zach Taylor was able to do that. Can he do that consistently? No team can really go to the Super Bowl consistently, but if he's consistently making these deep playoff runs, I'll shut my mouth about him. I still do have questions long term. Joe Burrow, you said it. He is a top 3 MVP candidate right there. I would have him and Hurts. Like, I do think Mahomes and Allen have separated themselves as 1 and 2. Him and Hurts are in that conversation as that third person. It's just, does Jalen Hurts have a 14-3 record and Burrow is 10-7? That might put him over it. But statistically, with all the passing numbers, Burrow's going to beat him. Like, obviously, this is a pass-first offense. This is a team that could put up 21 points in a quarter. It's a team that they had over 300 passing yards, I want to say, in the first half. I mean, they were nothing short of spectacular. The Falcons were out, I think, 5 or 6 DBs. Terrell didn't play.
He did
Casey,
play. He just got hurt.
He got hurt. Yeah. Hurt early, though, right? Like first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Casey Hayward got hurt. Their starting safety was hurt. So they were missing a bunch of guys. The Falcons have been like a kind of below average pass defense as is. And without those, top guys, they drop off a little bit. But I mean, this is surprising. We know the Bengals can do this since week 3. They really got back on track against the Jets. They beat Miami when Tua went down. Joe Burrow had a solid game. They did struggle against Baltimore. That was the one game, excluding the week 1 that you could look at where their offense did struggle, where Joe Burrow didn't look extremely comfortable for most of the game. But then you bounce back against the Saints, put up 30 points, continue this win streak against the Atlanta Falcons. Then this week they're playing at Cleveland, divisional game, a team that was very close with Baltimore this past week. I mean, Baltimore loves playing these 1-possession, 3-point games. So we'll see if right now the Bengals are probably playing better football. I think you could say that pretty comfortably with the way the Ravens have blown leads consistently, how this defense has gone down. Expecting them coming into the year being an elite defense, and right now they're obviously not playing like that. And the offense as well. Rashad Bateman is hurt again. If he doesn't play on Thursday against the Bucs, that's going to be a tough game. It's pretty evident when Bateman's not out there, even if he's not getting the targets, he just gives you an explosive threat on the outside that helps Lamar, that helps the offense in total. So without Bateman, that's when they've really been losing these games. So that's going to be a big loss for them if he ends up not being able to play. But, the Bengals and Ravens, it's going to be back and forth all year, I think. Right now the Bengals or the Ravens just have an advantage because they've beaten them earlier in the season. But I thought they were going to split, coming into the season. The Bengals would probably win at home when they play later in the year. But offensively, you got to feel like they hit their stride. I mean, this is a team with incredible offensive weapons. You said you put any quarterback on the Eagles, they probably have the best roster. I mean, offensively, you put any of these quarterbacks, Mahomes or Allen, you probably say they have the best offense, right? I mean, having T. Higgins and Jamar Chase while still having Tyler Boyd, no other team can really say that, right? And Tyler Boyd had a huge day too, right? So, I mean, they found their stride. Hopefully they don't get too hot too early, right? That happens in the past where teams get too hot offensively and doesn't last the whole season. But, I mean, in a league where Joe Burrow is playing at this type of level, it's hard to see them slowing down.
And Joe Burrow won't allow that. Joe Burrow is as calm, cool, collected as they come. He's a leader. He's not going to allow this team to get too high on themselves. He knows what the ultimate goal is.
Thankfully, he can't play Baltimore every week. He'd be fucked.
He's a winner. Oh, yeah, he's 2-1.
Or the Steelers, apparently.
Or the Steelers. Division games. Oh, he's playing
Joe
Cleveland.
Burrow is a winner. That's what it is. That's what he is. He's always been that. He always will be that. And he's going to finish his career with a Super Bowl ring. There's no doubt because he is that
How many?
guy.
I think he will win at least one.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I think he should win at least one.
I think he'll just win one. Not many quarterbacks win multiple.
Do you think he has to do it early with this core before they have to pay Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the defense maybe falls off a bit? Like, obviously, we're projecting a lot, but do you think Joe Burrow will win a Super Bowl with the core they have right now?
I do think so. And it could be this year.
Okay.